We're going to mix up the footage a little bit on the opening clips so you're not seeing the same neighborhood over and over. This was taken on a windy day in northwestern New Mexico. Some pretty neat scenery there. And here's a few more clips. These were all taken the same day. This was during a drive to Las Vegas, Nevada, down I-40. And there you can see us crossing in Arizona. There was an upper-level system moving through that area, so we did have an increase in clouds, but Flagstaff was in the low 50s that day. And we finally did make it to Las Vegas with the traffic and the crowds. Well, today, Las Vegas, they've got that northeast wind there, and that's a sign that cold air is coming in still from the Great Basin region. Same thing at Phoenix and Tucson, northeast winds there, and those are strong indicators of polar air in that part of the country. We can also see some sign of polar air all the way into Texas, so this is quite a substantial volume of cold air coming out of the western and north central U.S. And it's represented by this 1032 millibar high and this 1036 millibar high locked over the Great Basin area. The cold front is moving through Alabama, where we have some thunderstorms going on at this hour. It extends all the way down to the western Gulf, and then further out towards the east. Has not quite reached the east coast yet, and we can see 60s dew points all the way up into, I would say, probably southern Pennsylvania. And I think it has been a long time since they've seen that kind of moisture, so they are probably feeling quite a bit different up in the northeast. Then a quick check up in Canada. The cold air has pretty much exited that region, and things are coming under the influence of this Pacific front. Little wedge of warm air extending all the way up to the Northwest Territories, where we're starting to see 40s. And I think we're pretty much going to be seeing that polar air generation in the high Arctic ramping down. So these minus 20s should be out of the picture pretty soon. So we did talk about the substantial volume of cold air. We can see it horizontally on these charts, but what about vertically? Let's go out to Utah and just take a sample of the air mass using the convenient forecast skew-ts offered on the Pivotal Weather site. We see here that the cold air has a depth of up to about 14,000 feet. 700 millibars, that's going to be about 10,000, and 500 will be at about 18,000. So with the top that high, that's going to be certainly overtopping the passes and many of the mountain ranges as well. And then a look at the air out over Oklahoma, similar picture, tops at about 14,000 also, and you can see that extensive northwesterly flow. In the southwestern states, not much going on today. Lots of clear skies. We can see the subtropical jet down there in West Texas, and snowpack in the mountains of Colorado, Utah, and the Sierra Nevadas. The surface plots do show the existence of that polar front in Arizona and El Paso, and in California, it's showing up as Santa Ana winds. Winds this afternoon have been as high as 40 miles an hour in Ventura Harbor, with gusts up to 72 miles an hour above the Santa Clarita Valley. And we're expecting a strong warm-up over the next couple of days in the San Joaquin Valley, where temperatures will come up into the mid and upper 80s in places like Fresno and Bakersfield. In the southeastern U.S., a slight risk all the way from northern North Carolina to southern Mississippi. SPC focusing on a weak mid-level lapse rate, but some low-level destabilization taking place, and shear vectors favoring mostly linear storm modes. And there you see it, one strong segment moving through the Thomasville area in southwestern Georgia and then heading for the interstate further east. Further out in southeastern Alabama, the outflow boundary definitely apparent. So these are going to be cold pool-driven storms, one segment going through Montgomery, and the whole mess should gradually push into southern Georgia. And on the surface plots, we can certainly see the cold front with lots of 50s back behind that front. Out ahead of it, a series of outflow boundaries, just ahead of that convective system. And you can see the difference in temperatures from lower 60s all the way up to upper 80s, some very warm temperatures in parts of Georgia and Florida. The highest that I'm seeing, 88 degrees there at Albany, Georgia, and also 88 in Orlando. And a classic squall line moving across that region with a very large anvil. And you can see the convective fields out ahead of it representing the low-level moisture. And there's just enough moisture and instability to get storms going in eastern South Carolina. The model-derived soundings certainly showing some considerable low-level moisture and some good lapse rates in the low levels with the strong solar heating. However, the air mass aloft is really not that cold. And you can see part of the problem with that, the jet stream, is pretty far up north, and that's where we also find the colder temperatures. Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, just a little bit too far south. So as a result, the instability a bit on the weak side, and with the lack of strong upper-level flow, not much shear in the low levels, and the 0 through 6 kilometer shear also not really that impressive. In the northeast, cold air is on the move, heading into Pennsylvania and New York. Some rainy conditions in that region, but cold air is back behind that front, and we're expecting temperatures tomorrow night to come down into the low 20s in Ohio. That's going to approach the record lows. And we are expecting lake effect snows in the Great Lakes with this band of very cold 850 millibar temperatures as low as about minus 15. And it's not very often we talk about lake effect snow showers in April. However, that pattern is starting up, and you can see it out across the Great Lakes there, especially Lake Superior. And at this hour in the middle of the afternoon, the former K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base down to 21 degrees with snow, and you can see a lot of snow being reported in the UP of Michigan, and even as far south as Manistee and Traverse City. And there's the satellite imagery for the northwestern U.S. Once again, a lot of snow-capped mountains, and some cirrus coming onshore in the Seattle and Portland area. Some cold air advection cumulus across the Dakotas into Nebraska. And there's your station plots for the northwestern states. And lee-side troughing established once again with those westerlies in Montana and Alberta. Calgary coming up to 52 and 54 just up to the top there in Edmonton. Temperatures will warm up in that part of the country. Medford, Oregon, expecting 80 degrees today. Many of the valleys in western Montana and Idaho expecting 60s. And with that warm-up, we'll see winds coming up in the Columbia River Basin with 20 to 30 mile-an-hour winds for tomorrow. And with very low relative humidities, there may be a chance of grass fires. And Alaska, they've got a weather system moving through that region. Low pressure in the interior region, some cold air coming back in behind that low, and up to the north, some bitterly cold temperatures along the Alaska North Slope. Heavy snow is expected in the southeast interior along the north slope of the eastern Alaskan Range. And as you can see here, they do have winter storm warnings in effect. Imagine that, a winter storm warning in Alaska. But there it is, heavy snow, blowing snow, and accumulations 3 to 5 inches with localized amounts up to 16 inches. And that's all I have for this episode of Forecast Lab. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.